Welcome to the Private Practice Startup Podcast, where we help ambitious private practitioners across the globe to brand themselves and grow their dream practices. We chat with successful private practitioners, business coaches, and marketing experts, bringing you tons of practice building ninja tips. Visit privatepracticestartup.com for awesome resources, attorney-approved private practice paperwork, and our signature marketing e-course. Here are your co-hosts, Dr. Kate Campbell and Katie Lemieux.
Hey there, Startup Nation. Welcome back to another episode of the Private Practice Startup Podcast. I know I usually say I'm excited for our topics today, but I'm really excited today for this topic because I really think that this is a lot of what you all need to hear. And I was so excited that I chased this woman around just to try to make things work for a long time. So actually, I'm flying solo today. Kate is not here because we just had to have her on because I know she's about to drop mad value bombs for you guys. And we're going to be talking to Stacy Tuschl today, entrepreneur and author. And she just released a new book called The Implementation Code, Unlocking the Secrets to Getting It All Done. And that's exactly what she's going to be talking about today. So you guys are busy entrepreneurs. The majority of therapists are women. Guys, don't go anywhere though, because this is for you too. But really balancing work life, entrepreneur life, home life, parent life, all of it. That's what Stacey's going to be talking about today. But before we get started, we hope that you guys joined us last week as Kate and I just kind of took a step back and reflected on 2020 and what a year it has been. So we just kind of gave our reflections of 2020, a year in review. So we hope that you guys just join us for that conversation. That's kind of want to grab your favorite drink and just sit back and let's have a conversation about them. So a little bit about Stacy. Stacy started her own business at the age of 18 in her parents' backyard and turned that company into a multi-business she still runs today. Stacy is a best-selling author and founder of the Foot Traffic Formula, helping small businesses in the world get more customers in the door. The Foot Traffic podcast now has over 1 million downloads, which is awesome, and is frequently listened to for all the marketing on iTunes, where she's interviewed guests like Susie Orman. Stacy was named the 2019 Wisconsin, and it got cut off. Stacy, what is it?
Small Business Person of the Year.
Awesome. I have a few cutoffs here. I hope I put those in there. By the United States Small Business Administration. Awesome. Well, welcome, Stacy.
Thanks, Katie. Thanks for having me, and thanks for working with my schedule. And it kind of goes in today's topic, so we'll get to that, I'm sure. But I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. So I just want to dive in, but I guess I'd like to kind of start with your story first, because that will just give some good background. So share a little bit about yourself and what got you interested in helping people get it all done.
Yeah, for sure. So my story, I've been an entrepreneur since the age of 18. And even before then, I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. So we have a family small business that's been around for over 50 years. We have a construction business. And then when I was graduating high school, I had this love of dancing, but I was about to go to school, get a real job, get everything, what we're supposed to be doing. And I decided while I was doing that, I was going to just keep my love of dance in as a passion and a hobby. So I sent out some flyers. I was like, free dance classes for middle schoolers. Come join me. I had 17 kids come to my parents' backyard that summer. Within 3 years, 100 kids coming to my parents' backyard every summer, every week. And because of the family I grew up in, my family said, I think you might have a business here. I think you could start charging and these kids would pay and they're already referring. And that's what I did. So I incorporated in 2005. And now today I still run 2 performing arts academies in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We have probably about 1,000 dance and music students that come to us on a weekly basis. Between 40 and 50 employees, we've been grossing over $1 million a year, many, many years. And because of all of that, people started to ask me, how are you doing this? How are you a mom? How are you not? I don't work in the building at all. I haven't taught a dance class in 10 plus years. And people just wanted to know. And that's kind of where the book idea came from too, because they're asking, how do I get this all done? So that is where we are today. I would say about 5 years ago or so, people started to ask me more business advice. how are you scaling your business? How do you manage 40 employees? What does that look like? And that was the birth of Foot Traffic. So lots of stuff going on.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about Foot Traffic.
Yeah. So Foot Traffic it's funny because it's almost the identical story to the dance studio. I thought, oh, this will be fun. People were asking me, hey, can I pick your brain? Can I take you to lunch? Can I take you to Starbucks? And I was just like loving it. Now I'm like, you're not taking me anywhere. You're not taking me to lunch. You're not getting me to go to coffee. I don't have the time. But 5, 6, 7 years ago, I thought that was so cool and so fun. And why would anybody want to know like what I'm doing or this or that? And I started to have that, well, who would pay for this? No one would really pay me to do that. So I, for a few years, was just for free teaching business owners, oh, do this and try that. And they would come back and say like, oh my goodness, this works so well. I can't believe what's happening. And then just like the dance studio of, okay, somebody said, you should do this, you should charge. It was kind of peers in my industry saying, can I pay you to take you out? Can I pay you to jump on Zoom? And that's when I said, okay, I think it's time that I start doing this. So that was 5 years ago, was Foot Traffic.
Nice. And Foot Traffic speaks to who specifically?
Yeah. So Foot Traffic is for typically brick and mortars, people with physical locations. But I will say, obviously with the pandemic and even pre-pandemic, the online space is exciting. People are looking at like, oh, how could I do this with very little overhead, higher profit margins? So I definitely have not only taught brick and mortars, but I've taught brick and mortars who are like, how do I go online? How do I keep the brick and mortar and do online, right? So there's definitely people in there that have a little bit of both going on usually.
Well, that sounds like another even perfect topic for our audience as well, because especially in the world of therapy this year too, with the pandemic, is most therapists were forced into telehealth and very quickly. And some love it and they're staying and they're closing their brick and mortar, which they can. Some are doing a hybrid and some are just sick of it. They're either back in the office or they're ready to kind of go back in the office.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, and here's the thing, you're right. Some people are loving it and shutting their brick and mortars, and that's okay. I always tell people, like, figure out what this looks like for you, right? Like, if you love it, if you love working from home, great. Some people need to be around other people. They need to see people. They need to walk into that building. If that's you, great. Then open it back up. It's completely a personal preference here.
Exactly. Well, before we dive into the topic, let's just take a quick moment for our sponsor. Okay, guys, it's sponsor time. You know what? Instead of reading a script about Gusto's payroll and benefits, we wanted to tell you what small business owners say, the people who use Gusto every day. Here's what one small business owner says. With Gusto, I think of payroll as a 30-second job. The website is so friendly and a joy to use. Friendly payroll? You don't hear that every day. And how about Amy from Utah? Amy says, I love Gusto so much. It's so painless. It's like going to the spa, and we have great options and rates even though we're a super small team. Like going to the spa? Wow. And here's what Mneet says about Gusto's support team. Whenever something comes up, I reach out and literally 24 hours later, they tell us what to do or assure us that we've already handled it. Smart technology and friendly humans, that's super cool. Honestly, the list goes on, and right now our listeners get 3 months free when they go to gusto.com/PPS. Yep, 3 months of payroll, benefits, administration, and more, totally free. Again, that's gusto.com/PPS.
There are so many ways to keep your practice organized, but Therapy Notes is by far the best. Their easy-to-use, secure platform lets you not only do billing, scheduling, and progress notes, but also create a client portal to share documents and request signatures. Plus, they offer amazing unlimited phone support. So when you have a question, they're there so you can get help fast. Get started with Therapy Notes today, trusted by over 60,000 professionals. Go to therapynotes.com and enter promo code PPS, as in Private Practice Startup, and you'll get 2 months for free. Also, you can listen to episode 54, where we interviewed Brad Pleiner and took an in-depth view into their EHR.
So that's a lot of stuff, right? Being able to just like live life, be an entrepreneur, run a business, work on the business, work in the business. It's exhausting, or it can be exhausting. And sometimes we're kind of running around ragged, not knowing which way to go. So, I kind of feel like there's probably like this story, Stacy, behind like why you needed to figure this out. And then again, you figured it out and started teaching it. So share that story or pivotal moment.
Yeah, I love it. So I think for me, I was an entrepreneur before I had children. And a lot of times people figure it out when they become parents, right? They're like, I have to figure this out. For me, I had been doing this for so long, and I knew at some point I wanted to be a mom. I wanted to be a wife. And I needed to start to set it up because I could tell this was not going to work the way that I was living. Right now, I don't work in the building, but that was not always the case, right? I was there all of the time. Like, I mean, basically we're a second shift type business, right? We're there after school when the kids are off, but I would be there all day, doing everything, returning the phone calls. I'd be working all night. And it started to become a big red flag of this is never going to work if I want to have kids, have a family. So I decided before having kids, how am I going to slowly start to back out of this business? What am I going to do to make sure that I can work on the business and not in it? So it was a process. I was a main instructor. People wanted me, right? I'm sure in the therapy world, you have your therapist. You want this person. So as the owner, it can be difficult. I get this a lot. There's a lot of people like in the hair industry, same thing. You want your stylist. You don't want to be passed off to the next person. So people start to get very loyal to you and they want you. It's our job to start to shine a light on other people in our business. How do we make our team look like rock stars? So when we do want to make that transition or get somebody to go over here or work with that person, right? They're more excited about it. So that was something I started to realize. How do I make almost the person coming in better than me? And I think that's difficult because our ego gets in the way. We don't want anybody to be better than us, right? So that was what we started to do. I would say, I'm not somebody that was like technically trained in ballet. So I brought in somebody that had more experience than me, that would blow me out of the water. But the best part was when she got great reviews, I got great reviews because it was my studio, right? And I want people to realize that you can still build a business and not have the spotlight be on you. And that was, I think, one of my biggest strategies I did. But it took years. This isn't, you tell your clients tomorrow and you're out of it and they all stay, right? It was definitely, a little bit less next year, a little bit less the year after, right? And then all of a sudden I wasn't there at all.
And I love that you're really hitting it. It's a two-part process, meaning there's the mindset shift. Like it has to change within us first, and then we can start the process and implementation. I mean, we could start it anyways, but if there's like, of course, I'm in the therapy world, there's some limiting beliefs there or whatever, like you said, like my clients need me. It's me. I'm the only one, right? Then it's going to be hard to change. But I love that you say like, make your team look like rock stars. Interestingly enough, the people that we utilize for our Facebook marketing, they're a couple and they recently had a baby. So slowly they introduced us to one of their team and it was such a smooth transition. You know what I mean? I like watched it from the outside, and watched it happen. And it's just like, we built trust with her. She was included in everything. And then, we knew that when the baby was coming and, he slowly slid out and now we're just working with her. You know what I mean? And it was like perfect.
Yeah, but I've had the opposite where they didn't tell me they were having a baby and all of a sudden balls were being dropped and I'm like, what is going on? And then they're like, oh, here's your new girl. That is not the way to do it, right? That doesn't work. So I love that you share that experience, Katie, because that's how we want our clients to feel too.
Absolutely. And I'm thinking about like those of you in this point, and I'm sure there's going to be many other good little nuggets today, but in this point, like if you are a group practice owner or you are looking to create a group practice, this is a piece that if you are struggling with my clients need me, like this is a mindset shift first. And then being able to find those really superstars, because the reality is, and Kate and I talk about this all the time, and Kate built a successful group practice that houses many different specialties and she can't do that. You know what I mean? Like she has like one main specialty or two, but bringing on rock stars that serve children or work with specific disorders or addictions, like that's who you want there. So awesome. So what's the next part about getting it all done?
So I think the biggest thing is setting up those boundaries, right? So just as we were saying, like it was very difficult to schedule me on this podcast because I have very strict boundaries. You can tell I don't say yes easily outside of my boundaries, because not that I'm better than anybody it's just I have my priorities in check, right? I didn't always. So now I have to ask myself, what do I want my life to look like, right? So for me, typically I work from about 9 to 3, and there's 2 days a week that I get an extra hour because my mother, who has been a stay-at-home grandma for about 18 years, this is our littlest ones went to kindergarten this year, and she was begging to babysit. So she picks them up from school twice a week for an extra hour. It gives me time. But that's it. I book between those times. So when somebody is trying to request, at a certain day or a certain time, and I don't have that opening, it's just a no or a not right now, right? So I think sometimes we think, oh, I've got to say yes to this, or I really want this, and I'll squeeze it in my day. And then all of a sudden your day looks like everybody else's agenda, and it doesn't serve you and your business. So I think for me, really being intentional about what my days look like, what my weeks look like, and having those rhythms and routines. So there's just so much there that we can dive into even deeper. But it's about knowing like what serves your business. For me, podcasting is a great way for people to find who I am and what we do. So podcasting is on my list of things to do, not on my team's list, but on mine, because it is one of the most important things that I do.
I love that you say that, because one of the really important things that I don't think a lot of, whether it's a small business owner, a new business owner, or even therapist, is not tracking and measuring, right? And when you track and measure and you actually look at what is serving you and the business and your clients, really, then you can decide the most important activities, and my business coach taught me the acronym WIN, right? What's important now. And when I'm like overwhelmed with stuff, I will look at my schedule. Now, first off, what I do every morning is I journal. I focus on that one thing that I'm doing for the next 100 days. And then I focus on those top 1 to 3 tasks that I do. I put them on my schedule because I need a reminder, and it sits in front of my face all day. So when I start checking the email or doing whatever I'm doing, I'm pulled back that this is the most important thing. And it's the thing that's going to help drive business forward, right?
Yeah.
Or if I don't do it, it's going to have a negative consequence for business. And then I like to apply that to my life, right? Like, oh gosh, I feel like I've had a toothache or something like that. Like if I don't get this checked out now, it's going to be a dental emergency. So.
Yeah. And in our foot traffic formula, that's the 4th phase that we teach is tracking. Because if you aren't tracking, you're just throwing spaghetti at the wall, but you're not looking to see what's sticking and what's not sticking, right? As a business owner, we are marketers. We are. Like whether you perceive yourself as a marketer, you are a marketer. You may be a bad marketer if you're thinking, oh no, I'm not one. You are. But you need to track what's working. So yes, throw spaghetti at the wall, but then look at the wall. What stuck? Why did it stick? How do we do more of that? Right? And then why did that fall? Should we scrap it? Should we tweak it? Should we try again? There's so much stuff that we are going to learn by throwing that spaghetti and learning. So tracking is so incredibly important, because you might be thinking that Facebook ads are working, right? You might be assuming that your referral program is just blowing up. But if you don't know and you're wasting all this time on that, it can be a complete waste of time.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't agree more with you. And I love that you use the spaghetti on the wall, because Kate and I talk about that all the time, about how people do marketing, right? We call it spaghetti on the wall marketing. It's just like, we'll just throw it on the wall. Let's hope something sticks and, go from there.
But what I've experienced is they throw it at the wall and they look over here and they keep throwing, and then they look over here and keep throwing. It's like, wait, you did all of that work? Why are you not looking at the work that you just did?
Yes.
Right? We've got to be careful.
Yeah. And the numbers are amazing. Kate and I recently realized our assistant is amazing at reports. So she does all of our reports every month. And just to be able to look at that and be like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that was working. Or wow, that which we thought was working is not working. So let's not do that anymore. Like you said, or tweak or modify it. That's part of the process. So I can't, stress how important tracking and measuring is.
Well, and it's funny because I was talking to a therapist yesterday, and we did a little marketing workshop, and I had said, what are your peak times of year that people enroll? Or what are the peak times that you get like a massive influx? And for her, she was like, you know what? I talk to moms a lot, and it's almost September. It's like, those are the new moms that are stressed, they're overwhelmed. And she didn't even realize that until yesterday. And it's like, how many Septembers has she wasted not being effectively putting everything she's got into what she needs, knowing that might be a peak enrollment time for her? So if you're not looking, right, it's not only are you wasting your time, but if you have employees or contractors, you're wasting money paying them to do ineffective work.
Right. And also too, like if you do have seasons in your therapy business, that might be when you take time off or things like that. So you can plan those things as well. I know when I worked with Child and Family Services, the slowdown time was summer. But as a manager and a leader of a team, I already knew that. So we would bump up like the hours, not during the summer, because what everyone else said, and it was always shocking to me why the other management would do this is, okay, you have to get this many hours for the entire year. And it's like, but then people are scrambling and then you put a freeze on hiring and you put a freeze on vacation because everyone's trying to get their numbers and that's just not effective for anybody.
Right.
Okay. Go ahead. Number 3.
Yeah. So, wait, I feel like, did I go through 1 and 2 already? Did I do all this?
So you talked about make your team look like rock stars. Know your priorities.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Thank you. I'm like, wait, am I in my order? What am I doing? Okay. So with that said, these are just things that I'm kind of brain dumping of where I want you to be thinking. Habits. Habits is another big one, right? So if you are asking yourself, like, who do I want to be? Where do I want to go? What do I want 2021 to look like, right? There are massive changes that are happening every year or should be if you want to continue on that growth track, right? So for me, when I'm looking at what are new habits I want to incorporate next year? Who do I want to be? I ask myself, what habits are those people putting into place, right? I had a very real talk with somebody the other day that I said, your health habits, like you're trying to build $1 million business, but your body can't sustain what it is you're doing. You are not sleeping. You are not eating well. You are not working out. At some point, the level of exhaustion will hurt what you are trying to do and produce in your business. So I think we got to get really realistic here and say, what are we trying to build? And what do those people look like that have already built that business we're trying to accomplish, right? So it's hard because you might have some habits you don't want to let go of or habits you do not want to start to incorporate. You're like, 5 a.m., I don't want to wake up at 5 a.m. and all the list of the reasons why you don't want to wake up, right? But it depends. What do you want? How bad do you want it? And are you willing to sacrifice?
And I'm just curious is like, who are some of the people or one person that you kind of like to emulate and what habits have you adopted?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's so many people and I'm one of those where I will consume. And it's important to not just consume, but actually implement, right? I think some just even habit books that I've always loved is Darren Hardy, The Compound Effect. If you haven't read that book, it is a phenomenal book to kind of get that small incremental habit done and incorporated. Oh my goodness. Like there's so many ways to even look. And I think you emulate people in certain ways. You might love their business model. You might love the way that this person's lifestyle is with their business, right? You might want a certain type of business. And then you find out that person has no home life. They work 12 hours a day. Their kids have not seen them. And you might think you want to be that person. And then you realize what it takes to be that person. And it may not be the person you want to be. It's kind of like, if you think you want to be the cover of a magazine, what that woman looks like, right? In the bikini and her body's perfect. But then you find out what she's eating, how much she's working out. And you're like, no, thank you. Like, I guess I'll just keep what I'm doing or I'll go over here. It's not something that's truly in alignment. So you've got to have different business models, different personal goals, but model a little bit of everybody that you want or what you like from that person. You may not find everything inside of one person.
Of course. Nice.
Yeah.
So what is next?
So one of the things that I want to bring up, obviously, is implementation, right? This was a book that I wanted to teach productivity. Productivity is not just being busy. It's not just doing, it's producing, right? So we have to remember, what are you producing each day? That's how you know if you're being productive or not. So one of the things that I wanted to make sure that I didn't just call this productivity or, anything like that. I wanted the word implementation to be in there because I wanted people to remember, just like I said, I'm a big consumer. I love books. I love podcasts. I love online courses. Like, give it to me. I want to learn. But if you are only learning and you are not actually doing or implementing, you're wasting your time. So for me, I think the biggest thing I wanted to get across in this book was the implementation piece of it. So what I've noticed is a lot of people think, I need to learn how to do this thing, and then I'm going to do it. And they just think it's these two pieces that they're going to start with, and then they're done. So I've even had somebody say, okay, I learned the model, I learned how to do this, Now it's time that I make money, or now it's time that I get a return. Like, well, learning and doing are just two small pieces. After you learn it, then you do it. You need to refine what you're doing, kind of like we talked about with the spaghetti, right? The refining stage is the most important stage out of any part of implementation, and most people don't even get there. They learn, they do, they expect results, they don't get the results they were expecting, and they quit. Right? Refining is the stage that is going to get you finally getting the results you're looking for. So I think a lot of times people aren't implementing because they're not understanding what implementing actually looks like and where the finish line is. Right? So refining is so important when you're looking to see what's working. But then there's actually a fourth stage. When you are refining, at some point you're going to say, okay, I'm happy with this. Right? So when you've lost the 10 pounds, you might be really feeling good about what you look like. Or when you finally hit a certain income goal for yourself, you finally have made yourself on payroll at a certain amount and you feel good about that. Okay, but you can't set it and forget it. The fourth stage is maintaining, right? So we have to do some maintenance. So in the book, I talk about how people think a habit, you do it for 21 days or whatever the magic number is, and it's just ingrained. You are just doing the thing and you're going to be golden. No. It might take you 21 days for it to feel a little bit more normal, but you can easily drop a habit very quickly. Like I definitely look back at stages in my life where, I worked out consistently. And then one day it was like, it just stopped. And I don't know how it stopped or how that happened, but habits can break very, very quickly. So what is the maintenance plan you're going to put into place to make sure that it's still happening? So if you set a goal of, I want to have a $5,000 or $10,000 paycheck, okay, but are you going to put anywhere in your calendar 3 months down the road, 6 months down the road, like to double check that it's still happening? Right? Are you going to, do you have a habit or something you want to start in 2021? Can I put you in the spot?
You're putting me on the spot, but I don't have anything that's top of mind. But as you talk, we can maybe something else will come up.
I'll give just a couple examples. Like somebody might say, I want to start to read more books, right? So I want to read 10 pages a day. Like that might be something they say, okay? So if that's what you want to do, great. But if you just think, okay, I've got my book, I'm starting it, and you don't have a trigger to remind you later or to just double check that it's actually happening, the maintenance of it, the lack of maintenance is going to probably get you back to square one. And then you're going to ask yourself why you're not getting the results, right? So triggers are majorly important. And it might be a trigger where, like I said, a calendar reminder. It might be your workout shoes and workout clothes next to your bed in the morning. There's so many things that you can do, but it's just needs to be someplace in your face. You're not going to miss it. And it's going to remind you to do that thing. Maybe a phone alarm, things like that.
It's funny, I've obviously changed many habits and stuff like that and been successful at some and not successful at others. And one of the things, as you're talking about the trigger, I love that because I notice in the morning when I get up, right? It's walk the dogs, feed the dogs. And then, there's a few dishes in the sink or there's this here. And it's 45 minutes later and it's how did this happen? And I'm I need to plan this space before I go to bed to make things move. But you're right. There's no reminder of me to do that. And then I wake up in the morning, I'm wasted 45 minutes,
Well, and here's the thing, just like kids love checklists and routines and things like that, we need checklists and routines. So one of the things, I have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, and they have a morning checklist and they have a Sunday checklist. We do things on Sundays to get ready for the week. And if I don't have that checklist out, or we're just it's 8:15, what's going on? Why aren't they ready? I'll remember the checklist hasn't been pulled out. The second we pull up that checklist and they see it, it is a race to get it done because we love the checklist, right? So I have mine printed, it's laminated, they have a little expo marker. They love it. They love getting to do that. As an adult on a Sunday, my little checklist, I love checking off what are the plans, right? Get the kids' activity bags ready for the week. Set up my Monday morning meeting, whatever it is, right? You may find yourself needing a physical checklist to get through and to have that trigger happen.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
What are some other ways to kind of create a trigger or things that you find effective?
So I'm using any habit that you might want to incorporate. But this could be something for work too. So it's work, it's personal, family. So let's say you want to do something. If it's work related, my triggers are typically my Google Calendar because it's open all of the time, right? I use the reminder task inside of Google Calendar. Now, if you don't use Google Calendar, that would be a horrible place for you to put a trigger. If you are not used to opening it, right, it will not happen. So I remember when Instagram, it took me I've probably been on Instagram actively 2-3 years maybe. But before I was actively on it, I had to put in my calendar, do an Instagram story. Okay. Every day it would have to be a checklist of do an Instagram story. And I'd be like, oh shoot, what am I doing? Now I would never need a reminder to do an Instagram story because it's ingrained in me. Right. But that was on my calendar for a long time to remind myself to do it. So if it's work related, the Google Calendar reminder is going to be great. I also love alarms. So if there's something you can do on your phone, let's say you want to go live every Thursday on Facebook on your fan page at 1:00. Great. Set an alarm. My tip is set an alarm for 12:50 and you can repeat it. Say 12:50 every Thursday, right? You get it scheduled in your calendar. Now you have an alarm to remind you. So what's great about that is when you hit the snooze button, a snooze goes for 9 minutes. So there's going to be one more alarm that gives you the 1-minute warning. So what I love about the alarm clock on your phone is you get the 10-minute warning and I can decide, do I need to run to the bathroom? Do I need to get water? Do I need a protein bar or something like that? Or, okay, I'm just going to finish up what I'm doing. I can get back in the zone knowing I've got 9 minutes before my alarm is going to go off and I have to come to you. So we talked at 3:00. My alarm went off at 2:50 and again at 2:59 and I was here right at 3:00, right? That's kind of how that works. Now, if it's personal, it might not work that well for your computer, maybe your alarm still, but I like to even do things like, let's say you're somebody who doesn't take off their makeup or you really want to start flossing more, something like that, right? Where is the trigger? The trigger is in the bathroom, okay? Now, I am somebody that likes a nice looking, I don't want Post-its all over my house, okay? Maybe you do and you're okay with that. Great, then put it wherever. But I hide mine in places that would still trigger me. So when I open up my bathroom closet, when I open up a drawer, I might have a Post-it or something in there that reminds me to do those things. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Vitamins might be a big one. You might keep forgetting to take your vitamins. Well, where do you open up lunch? Like, what does that look like for you? If you're at home or you have an office or whatever that looks like, Post-its, little things like that to get it kind of flashing in your face. Do this thing.
It's so funny you say that. I'm reminded when I actually used to do community mental health many years ago, and I used to do in-home work. Like a lot of times we'd be traveling at home and it's Florida, it's hot, you have food. So I would literally like put my food in people's refrigerator with my keys on top of it. Cause I'm like, I'm not going to be leaving without my car. So if I forgot the food, you know.
But that's a perfect example of a trigger. Like if you don't have something like that, how many people do leave things at your house or things at your office, right? Exactly. Like if I'm at my mom's house and all of a sudden my daughter gives me something and I know we need to take this home, I'm going to go put it by my shoes at the front door. So I will see it and remember to take it. Without a trigger, you leave the water bottle, you leave the backpack, right? All those things happen. So the triggers are so important.
Yeah. Awesome. What else is important in being able to get it all done?
Yeah. So I think first of all, having this, I'll give my husband as an example, having a why behind it. So my husband, he actually used to be on the SWAT team here in Milwaukee for about 12 years, and he just retired and now works with me. He's been home almost a year, and he was a second shifter. So he's always been a night owl. And lately he's been kind of getting on a more normal schedule, but he still probably sleeps until 7:15, 7:30 when the kids wake up. And all of a sudden I'm in my office because I'm definitely a morning person. I'm in my office and at 6:00 in the morning, I hear his alarm going off in my bedroom. And I was like, that is so weird. Like, I don't even know what he would be doing at 6:00. Like that shocked me. But all of a sudden he doesn't get up. And then at 6:30, I hear it go off. He just keeps hitting the snooze button, right? So I said to him, what's going on? Like, what happened? Why did you set your alarm for 6? Do you have to go somewhere? And he was like, no, I thought I was just going to like start to wake up at 6. And I said, oh, okay. Well, what happened? And he said, well, I was like, what am I going to do right now? There's nothing to do. My kids aren't up. Like I have no work. So he's like, I just went back to bed. And I said, the reason it didn't stick is because you didn't have a why. You just set the new task, but you had no reason to actually get it done. So if you've ever looked back at a habit that you've had or you've wanted, but it didn't stick, this hurts people's egos sometimes, but I just tell you, it's because you didn't want it bad enough. You didn't have a good enough reason. And then people will fight me on it. I'm like, well, if you really wanted it bad enough, you would have figured it out. You would have made it work. There are days that I will wake up earlier than others, or I'll let myself sleep a little bit longer. And when I look at the consistency of getting up early, it's because I knew exactly what I needed to do at 5 a.m. I knew exactly what I wanted to get done at 5 a.m. and what that would do for me the rest of the day. The other days when I let myself sleep in, or maybe I wake up a little bit later, I didn't have as much like motivation behind it. So ask yourself, do you really want this? Or are you just thinking you should do it? Like he thought he should wake up at 6, but it wasn't something he really wanted.
Right. And I think that's so important to discern that. And a lot of times I think we judge ourselves too, is like, oh, well, people say I should get up early or whatever, and you're not getting up early, or you're just a night person and you actually are more effective at night. Not me, but some people are. And so I think really looking at that, and I always say, don't shit on yourself. So
yes.
Awesome.
Love it.
Stacy, any final thoughts as we begin to wrap up our time together today?
Yeah. So I think the one thing I'll actually say when we're talking about thoughts is your thoughts will change the way that you do the things you're going to do. When you think, I should be doing this, right? Or I want to be doing this, or this will really help me scale my business. This will really set me up for success. The thoughts that you think, it's your choice, right? Those are optional thoughts. Now, you're not going to not think, but you get to pick what you want to think, right? Or you get to decide, do I want to keep that thought? Is that a thought that's serving me? When the pandemic hit, I was very nervous as somebody who has a brick and mortar business and, in-person lessons. My first thought was not a good thought. My first thought was, I'm going to lose everything. Like this is going to be, as somebody who owns commercial buildings, I thought, I'm not going to be able to pay my mortgage. They're going to take my buildings. They're going to take my house, right? I started to spiral and I threw myself a little pity party. And then I changed my thought because I knew that was not going to help me get through this. That was not going to serve me. And it wasn't going to help me get things done. Because when you're sitting in a pity party, right, it's very difficult to get things done. So the thought that I picked, because it is a choice, you get to select that, was we'll figure this out. We always do, right? I just kept saying that over and over and over. And that thought made me feel empowered. And when I felt empowered, it caused me to take action. I felt more hopeful that there was an option. And it got us through what we've been going through with this pandemic. But the person who chooses to think this isn't going to work, I don't want to do telehealth. Like nobody wants telehealth, right? Like all of a sudden you start to think they're facts and they're really just thoughts. But those thoughts can be really dangerous if you go down that negative spiral. So make sure to be observing your thought process as you're going through your day.
Nice. Thank you so much for that. And I loved all of your stuff. And like the stuff that I heard was you talking about making your team look like a superstar or rock star, you said, know your priorities, habits. Who do you want to be and start emulating that? Implementation is key. And I love how you talk about that process of, acting, implementing, but refinement. And refinement, I agree with you, is one of the most difficult places, but it's one of the most beautiful places because I feel like that's where you begin to get your freedom in that refinement process. I look at the business that Kate and I have created, and there's a lot of work in refinement and systemizing, but then it's like when it works like a well-oiled machine, like that's the beauty of it. You also talked about productivity and what does productivity really look like, as well as having a why, and then all about thoughts. So thank you so much. What do you hope that our listeners take away from your message today?
Yeah. So I think I'll kind of piggyback off what we just said with refining. It can feel like so much work when you're just starting something in the business, or even just like switching into something new in the business. And understand that when you start, it is a manual process. You have to figure out what this is going to look like. But the goal is to take it from manual to automated, like you said, as a well-oiled machine. But it takes a little bit of time to go from, manual to automated, right? So just one day at a time, one step at a time, knowing that the work you're doing now will pay you so much back, like so many more than you can ever imagine, but you do have to put in the work now. It can feel exhausting in the 2020 we've been living in at this moment, but it's a temporary thing. We are not in a permanent situation. It's a temporary sacrifice that will have rewards if you just can stick with it and do the work.
Nice. Thank you so much for that. And therapists, I'm just talking directly to you. Like, this podcast to me is really about the mindset stuff. And the beauty of being a therapist is we already get mindset.
Yes.
But the reality is when we become a private practitioner and open our own office or group practice, is we still have to do the mindset work. It's just business related now. So I encourage you to take away at least one nugget of what Stacy shared today, and not just take away, implement it, and really start making it a habit in your business. And are you guys wondering I'd love to get a copy of her book? Well, Stacy?
Yeah. So right now we still have our book where it's free. You just pay the shipping and handling. And with the book itself, it's a physical copy that we'll mail out to you. But then when you get in the book, because I thought, how can I write a book about implementation and then people read it and not implement it? That would just be a disaster, right? No credibility at all whatsoever. So what I did was, inside the book, there's actually going to be another code that gets you a free mini course that helps you take the book and actually gives you an action plan to implement it, to really make sure that you go through it and you get some things done. So if you go to implementationcode.co/free book, that is where you can find all of that information. And we ship it in the United States as well as internationally.
Nice. And of course, we'll always put that on our show notes page. So if you're driving around, listen to this, or usually where I listen to my podcast in the shower, you usually don't have a place to jump on a computer. So just go to the show notes page and we'll have it for you there, and you guys can click that link and get that. Thank you so much, Stacy. I'm really glad. I knew that this podcast was going to be great. It's so nice to meet you. You're a ball of energy. I loved everything we talked about. I'll also put, Stacy recommended Darren Hardy, The Compound Effect. We'll put that in the show notes as well. And Startup Nation, we hope that you enjoyed this podcast, and we hope that you guys join us next time as we speak with Jared Boland from Hushmail. And Jared is actually going to be presenting on a topic, or really talking about a topic that you guys chose. We love to poll you as the audience to see what you guys want the most. And his topic is tips to transition to telehealth successfully. So hope you guys join us next week. And as always, we love to hear and receive your love emails and or reviews, whether that's on Google, iTunes, Facebook. We so appreciate that. And honestly, that's what keeps us going and why we do what we do. So show us some love and we'll give you a Startup Nation superhero shout out. And of course, if there's a topic or something that you're interested in hearing, we're always open to your suggestions. You can just send us an email, kate@theprivatepracticestartup.com. And Startup Nation, we will see you guys next time. Thank you so much for allowing us to inspire you from startup to mastery. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for joining us on The Private Practice Startup. Visit theprivatepracticestartup.com for awesome resources, free trainings, attorney-approved private practice paperwork, and so much more.